Well, hello, everybody. As you will see, I have a very dear friend of mine who's also a very avid user of our health and emotions, our palace of possibilities, our EFT, our OEFT, optimal EFT, and so on. That's Gabrielle Rutten, who also has medical training as an MD. Say hello, Gabrielle.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
Gabrielle and I also recently co-authored a book. She wrote most of it, called EFT, official EFT from A to Z, and it's over your left shoulder. There we go. Okay. So let me give you a little plug for the book first. All right.
Yes, good.
But we want to get into a couple of topics here because I'd like to have you help me emphasize something. Okay. And that has to do with the value of our brain, the human brain, as a pharmacy. And I saw an interesting photograph. I was talking about this before we recorded. I want to talk about it a little bit. Most of us think of a pharmacy as a place we go for meds that the doctor describes and prescribes, and we take the meds for whatever the disease is and so on. But this photo that I saw was a photo of I guess you'd call it a roadside food stand. You know, they had bananas and pineapples and all kinds of, carrots and celery and all kinds of natural foods. And at the top of it, it didn't say Joe's food stand. What it says was pharmacy.
Good one.
Which is an interesting place because, at least in the American diet, there's a whole bunch of stuff that isn't really that kind of thing, okay? And in fact, properly used, it is, together with the actions of the brain, a pharmacy. And it's a good one. And I know you've got views on that, but let me step into this for a moment because it's something really important for our listeners and readers and so on to digest. The human brain is sometimes called the perfect pharmacy. And me not being a doctor, I'm going to give an example, then have you take it from there, if you would, Gabrielle. If I'm just sitting here in my office, enjoying my day and whatever, and in the door walks a big, mean, growling Bengal tiger, okay? Well, I don't want to be here sitting in this chair. I want to get out in a hurry. And my brain immediately senses the danger, immediately, without my asking it to do so, pumps adrenaline into my system. So I'm out of this chair and out the door in record time. I could beat any Olympic sprinter anywhere. Okay. I'm out of here. Okay. But I didn't ask for the adrenaline. I didn't ask for it. It just showed up because it was necessary. Okay. Now, our brain does that in lots of really good ways. And while our conventional health procedures tend to want to give outside medications, outside chemicals, drugs, for this sort of things that are bothering us, not always necessary. But I'd like you to talk about that. Would you please?
Yes. So indeed, your brain helps you prepare for fight and flight. So this is called the stress reaction, the sympathetic stress reaction. And it just, your audience probably knows adrenaline and cortisol. Those are stress-related hormones. So it just readies the body to do what you just described, to get out of there because of the Bengal tiger. The opposite also is organized in your body if you use the proper pharmacy, like the food stand with the nice bananas and tomatoes and healthy foodstuffs, if you do EFT. So what we're talking about is the opposite of the stress reaction, which is the relaxation response. Then a complete other set of chemicals will circulate in your body, which relaxes you, which makes sure that you're in balance, you're in a healthy state. And so these chemicals that are partly organized through the brain are very important. The stress related ones to survive or to increase your possibility of surviving, but the other ones like serotonin, like endorphins, like dopamine, these kinds of drugs, of the natural drugs of the brain and the body, help you to be in a healthy state. And that's massively important, because if you want to be in balance, in a healthy state, though, you need those to circulate.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about the food stand called the pharmacy was it was giving you things that you can ingest, to help your body do what it's supposed to do to survive and have good health and so on. But among the things that are there for you to buy are not positive emotions. Okay, they're not there. So we are usually carrying around some form of guilt, anger, resentment, some kind of something's bothering us, some worry, some doubt, and so on. And so that is causing our brain to start creating some negative, that's my term, negative chemistry in the system. If they could sell that and people could buy happy thoughts, or thoughts that, or things that got rid of all the other stuff we tend to carry around, even if it's subconscious and we're not aware that we're angry at, Aunt Sue for what she did at age 6 or something like that. Okay. If they could sell that, then they'd have a really good pharmacy, if you will. Okay. But they don't. So, I mean, you're going to say something, but let me just finish this one little thing.
Yeah.
If we're spending our time, even if we're eating the best of foods, all right, but we're dwelling on, because we're still angry at so-and-so for whatever they did or whatever age it was, and we still feel guilty about this, and we're worried about that, and so on. Those are the not so happy thoughts that are also poisoning the system. If we instead watched funny movies, instead of war movies or crime movies or suspense movies or whodunit movies and stuff like that, if we did that instead, we're having a lot of positive stuff come in. And that's what we're trying to teach with the Palace of Possibilities in our EFT and OEFT and so on, antidotes, if you will, to that kind of thinking. Now, you were going to say something. I'm sorry for interrupting.
I was going to say exactly the same. I was going to say there's a whole industry that tries to sell you happy thoughts, namely, films that make you laugh, not the war ones, not the horror ones, but there's a whole industry that also tries to provide a good time where you can have a good laugh. Laughing is immensely important. It brings out the good stuff in your body.
The serotonin, the endorphins.
Exactly. Dopamine, stuff like that. Oxytocin. Same goes for what you just said, that if you walk around with these negative thoughts, or you're triggered on a daily basis because of negative things and worries and all that, that's where I think EFT has an important role to play. Because if you use EFT, be that either tapping or working with the unseen therapist, optimal EFT, you can bring your body from a state of stress, because any negative emotion, any negative thought basically activates the stress response, to a state of relaxation. And that's exactly the state you want to be in, because then the good stuff is circulating in your body. That's where healing takes place. That's where relaxation happens, and you will feel peaceful and at ease. And that's the good stuff. So that's where EFT plays an important role, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, there's an interesting book. It was written decades ago by a American fellow by the name of Norman Cousins. It was called Anatomy of an Illness. And basically, he was not a doctor, okay, but he had a ailment of the collagen, connective tissues throughout the body and so on, and it was deteriorating, and he was very arthritic and couldn't move much of anything, and basically bedridden, And the medical profession didn't have any answer for him, except for some drugs to help with the symptoms and so on. But he wasn't buying that. And through his own research, he thought, well, to parrot what you're saying, although he wasn't using those terms, why don't I just have my body naturally create healing chemicals? And so, while you don't always have to laugh at every moment, that helps big time. But to stay away from, negative thinking of any kind is going to be good. So he wanted. So what he did was he just got a bunch of, at the time, what were very funny movies, and he'd run them over and over and over again, and sit there and watch them and laugh and laugh and laugh, and so he got more movies. And while he didn't get, as I recall the story, completely over his collagen thing, it was like 90%, and he could run around and do whatever he wanted to do. And he died eventually of some other disease other than the collagen one. Yes. And so that gets us to a topic I want to ask you about, and one which I emphasize quite a bit in the health and emotions part of Palace of Possibilities. And that is, to me at least, I have to ask the question, what causes diseases? And as I emphasized in what I was writing, if you look at the big medical websites about what causes this, that, or the other thing, just about every one of them says the cause is unknown. Doctors don't know what causes da. Maybe this contributes and maybe that contributes. So what causes disease? Now, before you answer that, I want to let everybody know that you have decided as an MD not to use your medical license. You do not prescribe any kind of drugs, any kind of surgeries. You use only EFT tapping and or the unseen optimal EFT, the unseen therapist. Only that. So talk about why you did that, what causes diseases. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. I mean, I was trained as a doctor. I walked around the hospital in the white coat, the whole shebang. I stopped doing that because early on, I just realized that unresolved emotional causes are a really important root cause for disease. Now, obviously not if it's evidently very physical. I mean, if you jump from a building, you might break something. That's not emotional. That's just, impact of the what happens. Same goes for car accident as such. I mean, if you're hit by a car, there's damage to the body. So, but we're talking about all these chronic situations where there is symptoms or diseases, and if you really carefully look at how they when they start and what is happening, you will identify that there's emotional causes to these diseases, and we describe it in our book. I have to point to the right direction right there. Even if I look at mainstream medicine, because we're not here to say they're all wrong and whatever else. I mean, they really believe in what they write, and even if they say we don't know what the cause is, they might say that there's a lack of dopamine in the brain, or all kinds of reasons why these symptoms arise. But even mainstream medicine is realizing that stress, all kinds of stress and all forms of stress, play a very important role. So we go, one or two or three maybe steps further and say, no, the cause of physical illnesses and psychological problems is caused by emotional problems, unless proven otherwise. And in the 24 years that I've been doing it, the way you just described, that's the wrong expression, of course. I don't just use EFT. I use EFT only. time and again. That's what becomes clear. If you use EFT to really clean house on your emotional problems, the past ones, the old ones, but also the daily triggers, then things really change and symptoms disappear. So I'm really happy to be able to work like this. So I literally never prescribe drugs. So I'm not against drugs. I'm not advocating that everybody just stop, drop their medication and not go for an intervention or a surgical intervention or whatever else. But for anything that is not acute, for anything that doesn't bring you to the ER, there's time. Use that time to see for yourself what happens if you use EFT on all your stresses and worries, all the specific situations where you were stressed out and are still carrying around remnants of. That's what I say.
I think what you're saying, Gabrielle, is that yes, the medical profession can help with your symptoms. They've got some all this stuff. Okay, they've got all this stuff. But for most of the diseases that we come across, most of them, there's time. We don't have to take the drugs immediately. So why not take something like our EFT and OEFT that has such a long, I mean, we haven't just done this yesterday. We've started since 1995. Okay. I mean, we have a long history of oftentimes stunning results using no drugs, no surgeries, no nothing. Of the conventional sense. And there it is. I also want to back up to one thing. You said something earlier about the doctor may say a cause for some ailment might be a lack of dopamine production in the brain. Yeah, okay. That to the doctors might mean cause. To me, and please comment on this, that's just another symptom. Something causes the lack of dopamine production in the brain. What is that? Something causes that. And that we find with impressive regularity can go away if we locate and find the offending, we call them specific events, but the offending emotional contributor, to that. Take care of that, bring peace and relaxation to the system, and it normalizes. And symptoms you had, which are labeled this disease or that disease, start to fade for lack of cause.
Absolutely. And I think depression is a very good example because we need to realize that the moment they start researching, what the cause might be, so they have this finding. They say there's a lack of dopamine, for example. However, what they don't take into account is that if in a depressed state, your dopamine is low, that's just a symptom. That doesn't prove it's the cause of the depression. And what doctors never investigate is how does the body switch back to its normal state once you have resolved the problem, the depression, the stress, everything. So a finding as such does not prove that there's a causal relationship, as we like to call that. So that the lack of dopamine is the cause of depression. It's definitely a temporary situation where the dopamine is lacking or is low during the stress phase. But we have to, we basically have to turn it around. Whatever they find may just be symptoms of how the body functions under stress. So if you start working on all the stresses, underlying situations that cause you stress, and your body, literally gets a chance to rebalance itself, things change, not of themselves, but because the body has been programmed to do that. The body has been programmed to help you through stress and then to, return back to normal, to its normal function.
Yeah.
So, in all this, I mean, we it's easy for us to say, well, then just, do EFT and stay out of stress. But one of the most important focus points is stay out of fear, because lots of information that either the doctor or other therapists give you, or you find on internet, really scares you, which is stress, which keeps the body in stress, which is not giving you a chance to recover. So getting yourself out of stress, helping yourself out of fear is so important. For that, again, use EFT. Get yourself out of stress.
Okay, one final thing, and we'll close this out, Gabriella. You and I had a conversation a few months ago, I think. And I got to thinking about medical schools. And if I was a medical school and my job was to properly educate medical students to become doctors and to be the most efficient they could be. Now, this is a biased comment, okay, but this is my view. The first year or two of medical school should be dedicated to the emotional causes of diseases, and things like EFT and optimal EFT should be taught first. They should be magicians. They should be masters at this and apply it before they ever invade the body by cutting open and removing something and filling it full of drugs and radiating it and all that other stuff. Your thoughts, and then we'll close.
I totally agree. And so, in my trainings, I do have doctors that want to learn EFT. I just, the other day, a GP, she's, unfortunately, she retired. And now she said, well, now I want to learn about EFT. So I wish only that, they would turn that around. Don't start doing EFT after you've retired. Start with EFT before you do anything else. I totally agree. That's what I do. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Gabrielle, anything more you want to say before we draw the curtain?
No, I think this about covers it.
All right. Well, to our listeners, I hope you found this useful. And we're now going to draw the curtain until maybe another video another time.